Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be reviewing the Canon 85mm f2 macro lens. I've had the R6 since end of last year and I've been on a journey to review almost every RF lens out there to figure out which ones I would like to buy for myself. And this has been the last one that I've been able to have. I've had it for a couple of days now on loan, and I've been trialing it out because I'm super excited to have an 85mm prime in my lens portfolio, as you will. So let me just get into kind of the physical appearance and what this lens is before what I like and what I dislike. So the first thing is, it is pretty lightweight, so it weighs 500 grams, so half a kilo. Which is not much at all. It's pretty small, so even on the camera you can see it's not a very big lens. It's well built. If you compare this to the more expensive lenses, the ones that are all metal, you can notice that something's rattle inside. When the zoom comes out, it's a little bit wobbly as well, so the construction quality is a little bit less than other RF glass that I've seen. But also this one comes at a price point which is much less than those L lens glasses. So I think construction quality is great for the price that Canon has actually managed to put in this one. It comes with two rings. So the outer ring is your control ring. So this is new to the Canon R or Mirrorless line, where with this control ring, by default, you can control exposure in your camera, but you can actually change it within the menus to control ISO, shutter speed, I think even white balance, and you can do it while you're taking the picture. So you put the shutter down halfway, and then this control ring, it can change whatever setting that you told it to change. So a very great addition to have. It has another ring, which is the focus ring. So basically, it's focused by wire, electronic focus. It's not attached to anything within the camera. You don't see like the focus mechanism coming in or out when you're rolling this, but it does when it's plugged into the camera and turned on. And then you have three rings here. So the first one is the autofocus limiter. So it has three positions, full, half a meter to infinity, and then 0.35 meters to 0.5 meters. And depending on where you put it, it will limit the autofocus to only search in between that range. And this is super useful, especially on this lens, because the autofocus tends to hunt for quite a while. So by limiting it, you're actually making it faster to pick up where it has to focus. And then you have the second switch, which is autofocus or manual focus. And the last switch, which is stabilization on or off. And that's basically it that the lens has, nothing else. Canon has put it at a price point of £649 here in the UK, which is considerably cheaper than the other prime lenses that they have in their stable. So for example, the Canon 85mm 1.2L is around £2,799. So basically, you could buy this one and have 2,000 extra pounds in your pocket to buy whatever you want. So you actually could buy two 24-105 lenses, which are approximately like £1,000 each. And you can have that instead of just one other prime lens. So it's a super interesting price point, and let's see if it lives up to the hype around it. So now that I've taken you through what the physical aspect of the lens is and also the price point, let me take you through what I like and dislike about this lens, starting with the likes. And actually there's quite a lot. There's 5 things I really like about this lens. And the first thing, obviously, is it sharp? It is. This lens does amazing pictures, and I'm gonna say for the price. So I was able to review the Canon 85mm 1.2, which is that £2,799 lens, and take some pictures with it. And I called it the Rolls Royce of prime lenses in the Canon stable. I absolutely love that lens. What I was able to take out of it was amazing. You just point it around, shoot at anything, and it will make that just pop. When I went to this one, I was a bit skeptical because it is £2,000 less, 2,000. And when I started comparing pictures, the ones that I were able to take good, this one actually is very similar to the other one. Again, the other one has a couple of stops less of aperture, so you have to compare apples to apples, f2 to f2. It doesn't have that extra light coming in of the 1.2, so that still remains in the other lens's stable. But if you would compare like to like, this one doesn't perform that bad. What I did see was it was a little bit more tricky to get that perfect shot. So while the 85mm 1.2, you could point it and almost, it would be a little bit more forgiving to what you were throwing at it. In this case, you almost have to have ideal scenarios for it to perform. If you're just trying to run and gun, like run and shoot, and I've been taking a lot, we're in lockdown in the UK, so I've been taking a lot of pictures of my kids. With them running around, I struggle quite a lot to get that amazing shot with this lens. If I get them to actually stop, pause, and I'm able to compose and make sure that I'm doing it correctly, this lens really performs, but I do need that pause. The second thing is the performance in low light. It is a prime lens with an aperture of f.2, which means it's a pretty fast lens, and it allows you to take pictures indoor pretty much with low light or even without flash in some circumstances. Again, it is more finicky than the 1.2, and of course 1.2 allows in 3 times more light than this one does, but it does perform pretty well and you don't have to pump up the ISO very much. It does happen that the images do get a little bit soft at f2, but again, I keep throwing the price at it. It is £2,000 less than its L glass equivalent. So does it perform? Yes. Does it perform as much as something that's 4 times more expensive? No, but it's hard to see that difference. So again, another thing that I love. And now the third, fourth, and fifth things are the technology that Canon mastered into this lens at that price point. So the first thing is image stabilization. The £2,700 lens, it does not have image stabilization. This one does, and Canon says it has 5 stops of it. When you match it to an R5 or an R6, which has in-body stabilization, that means 8 stops of image stabilization in between both of them. So you're able to hold handheld, lower down shutter speeds, and still get perfectly sharp, non-blurry images. That is absolutely amazing at this price point. The second thing is the focus. So for those of you that saw the video about the 85mm 1.2, one of the things that I said was that it didn't have a short focus capability. So the minimum focus was 85 centimeters away. So sometimes I couldn't get as close to the subject as I wanted to, especially when you're going through fast moving objects, my kids. Some of them I just couldn't take it because the focus could not go as close as they were to the camera at that time. This one has 35 centimeters of focus, minimum focus length, which means you're able to get pretty close to your subject and take amazing detailed pictures. This should pop up some like face pictures that I have. Notice the detail and notice how close I am. So the fifth thing that I really love about this lens, and still talking about tech, is that it has macro capabilities. So it's able to go until 0.5 times magnification in macro mode. And what does that mean? It means if you have a 35mm sensor, which the R6 does, or any full frame camera has, the objects that are 35mm will appear half that size in your picture. And this is able to do that. Not a lot of lenses have macro capability, so having this kind of hybrid is pretty good. So as you can see by the list, there's a lot of good in this small lens. However, is there anything that I didn't like about it? Yes, there were 3 things I didn't like about it, and some of them are pretty major. And let's start by the biggest point, which is the autofocus. So Canon equipped this with an STM motor, probably to save cost, and the way to best describe it is leisurely. It kind of takes its time to autofocus, one, so versus other RF glass that I've been experimenting with, where instantaneously it autofocuses, this one is almost like always one step behind the action and trying to catch up. And that is a problem if you're catching fast moving objects. So for example, for sports, I would definitely not recommend this. If you are trying to run in street photography with people moving, I would definitely not recommend this. Now the second thing around the autofocus is how much it hunts. So I've been pairing this with the R6, and up to now, every lens I've put on the R6, it doesn't hunt very much. I mean, the capabilities of autofocus within this camera are stellar. And anything I've thrown at it, my old EF glass, and I have like non-L glass. I have an old Nifty 50 1.8. I have an EF 40mm, which I'm recording right now. And every single time, All these lenses do not hunt that much. While this one struggles, like taking indoor photography or even outdoor sometimes, something happens to it where it just misses where it has to be and just keeps going back and forth, which is why I think Canon introduced this switch here, which limits that autofocus. So if you're able to play with it and know more or less where you want to focus, then this switch might help with that hunting. But otherwise, there are some times where you just lose the shot because of what the lens is doing. The second thing I don't like about this lens is when I'm doing video. So the autofocus, besides being slow, is also extremely noisy. And the way I normally shoot is by putting a Rode microphone on top of this, so it is able to capture any noise coming from the lens. So unless you're doing B-roll where you don't need the audio, I definitely would not use this, for example, for an interview or anything where autofocus actually has to move. And then the third and last thing that I don't like about this lens is that multiple times when focusing, and especially when I'm going from objects that are pretty close to the lens to then being further out, when it's close by, the lens kind of goes into macro mode focus, and it goes into this black mode that just, the camera goes completely black, and I'll put up a picture, and it stays in that mode for a couple of seconds. And the lens has a little bit of difficulty of getting out of that mode. In which case, I've already lost the next couple of pictures that I wanted to take. So it's like a reset from macro that really takes a couple of seconds for it to go back into normal mode. There you go. That's what I liked and disliked about this lens. And the next question that you, the viewer, may have is, would you buy it? And actually another question, would you recommend it for anybody? Personally, it's probably not a lens that I'm going to keep on my list of aspirations to have, simply because of that autofocus. So I found myself losing quite a lot of shots of the leisurely autofocus. That's actually a good pun. Autofocus. And I'm photographing normally pretty fast moving objects, named kids, which means that I'm actually losing quite a lot of shots. And that's something that I definitely don't want to have. And that's my major peeve with this lens. Which leads me to the next question. Would I recommend it for anybody? Definitely yes. So if somebody's doing studio work where you have it in a controlled environment, controlled light, and you're not trying to do fast moving objects, you're just trying to do portraits, definitely yes. Even outdoors, so if you're trying to do portraits of somebody that's not really moving in a controlled space, you can get amazing pictures out of this. Pictures, and people are gonna hate me for this one in the comments, almost as good, or if you're not pixel comparing, as good as a Canon 85 1.2L, which again is worth 2,000 pounds more than this lens. And people that want an 85mm to travel. So this only weighs half a kilo, it feels good on the camera, it works pretty much okay, and you can just throw it in your bag and have it there. That is not something I can say from the more expensive versions, which weigh a kilo or a kilo and a half for an equivalent. So this is just kind of like your all-around go-to feel-good lens. Definitely, if you want a cheaper lens, an 85mm, and you're not too concerned with the autofocus, which is the only Achilles heel of this lens, definitely get it. And that's the review, guys. So I hope you liked it. If you did, whack that like button. If you disagree with anything or want more information, leave it in the comments below. I'll try to answer everybody. And you find all these lens reviews useful, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you guys here in the community. Take care and see you in the next review. Bye.